Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The role of women, full stop, is huge and immense in Islam. Whether it is as an individual, whether it is in da'wah, whether it is in teaching, it is as huge as a man's role, if not greater. Simply because women constitute the majority of our community. They're far greater in number than men. And basically they are half of the community because we're either males or females. And she is responsible for upbringing the other half of the community because she's the mother, she's the wife, she's the sister, and she is the daughter as well. If you read the Quran, you will find great emphasis on taking care of the parents and specifically the mother. We all know the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when he said 3 times to a man asking him, who is more worthy of my good companionship? The Prophet said, your mother, your mother, your mother, and then he said, your father. And also, we all know the advice of the Prophet ﷺ to men to take care of their wives. When the Prophet said, ﷺ, take good care of your women folk, of your women folk. And the Prophet also said, ﷺ, the best of you are the best to your women, and I am the best to my women. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. As a daughter, we know lots of hadiths where the Prophet says, ﷺ, whoever is given 3 of these daughters and he upbrings them well, takes care of them, they will be a shield for him from hellfire, even if they were 2. And some companions said, even if they were 1. So, in essence, if a woman is righteous, practicing, religiously committed, if she is a good Muslim woman, then the whole community would become a good community, because she would be outweighing 100 men, as she has the whole society on her shoulders. However, in order for a woman to be successful and to be productive in a community, there are basics that must be acknowledged. And these basics, unfortunately, a lot of the Muslims are negligent, either intentionally or unintentionally. The vast majority are ignorant among the Muslims. They don't know. And those who know tend to be negligent. They don't want to pay attention, though they know the ruling. So these are basics. Once we set the floor, then we can proceed to be a productive nation. For example, a woman is a test, a tribulation, a fitna upon men. And this is how Allah created them. This is part of our tests on earth. There are so many of them. Allah says in Surah Al-Mulk, verse number 2, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ. Allah who created death and life to test you. So all what we see in life is tests. Men are tested with so many things: temptations of wealth, temptations of power, temptations of worldly matters. The greatest of all temptations, the greatest of all fitna, is women. The Prophet says, alayhi salatu wasalam, I have not left behind me a temptation, a fitna, more harmful to men than women. And a lot of the women don't pay attention to this. They say, I'm free to do whatever I want. I can wear whatever I want. Even here in Saudi Arabia, nowadays, we hear women, when people talk to them and say to them, cover yourself, wear the hijab as instructed by Allah, so you don't tempt any man. They shrug their shoulders and say, it's the man's fault. He should lower his gaze and not look. If he's tempted, then this is his fault. And subhanAllah, how people's understanding and logic is twisted by shaitan. Why don't you come out naked and ask people to lower their gaze? This is the ruling of Allah that you must cover. It's a ruling of Allah that you must wear hijab. So if a beautiful woman enters a circle of 50 men, the vast majority of these men would not lower their gaze, and they would look and stare at this beautiful woman. While if a handsome man enters a circle of 50 women, only few would look. And the rest by nature are bashful. They will lower their gaze, or if they're religiously committed, they will do it because of the fear of Allah. This is how Allah created men and women. So hijab is an obligation in Islam. If you want to be productive, be my guest. But you have to abide by the hijab. The physical hijab and the sentimental hijab. Okay, the physical hijab we know, the one we cover our bodies and maybe cover our faces as well, wearing the niqab. But what's the sentimental hijab? I've seen a lot of women lately abiding by the hijab, and some of them, unfortunately, even abiding by the niqab, which is physically required. But they don't put any boundaries to how they deal with men. So I've seen them chit-chat with non-mahram, flirt with non-mahram, laugh and crack jokes with non-mahram. And when you address them, they say, we're wearing the hijab. I was approached in Kuala Lumpur by two sisters or two daughters wearing the hijab, wanting to take a selfie with me. Excuse me, I've just finished the lecture. What did you learn from my lecture? I want to take a selfie alone. We know this is haram because this is seclusion, khulwa. Both of us, we want to take a picture of you because now it's a threesome. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Look how shaitan messes up with people's heads. Though they look to be practicing, they look to be abiding by the hijab, but this is only the outer appearance that is covered. The inside is totally corrupt and tarnished. And this shows you the great impact such ideology has on the whole community. When you have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality in the same individual, a person who's practicing, mashallah, big beard, looks Islamic, but at the same time, he has a different private life, which totally goes against his beliefs. And this is something that needs maybe another lecture. Among the facts that we have to understand for a Muslim woman to be productive, that the media is our worst enemy, which is nowadays controlled by Maronites, Christians, by Jews, by atheists, by secularists, not definitely by Muslims, because rarely you will find a Muslim, real true Muslim, controlling any type of media. And this media is our worst enemy because it portrays a non-hijabi woman, a non-practicing Muslimah, to be educated, intellectual, sophisticated, beautiful, while a Muslim woman who's righteous and practicing, they portray her as retard, uneducated, doesn't know what to say or how to act, so primitive. And this is a sort of brainwash that the cause of all of this is her religious commitment. If she wasn't practicing, if she was easygoing, if she attended nightclubs and mixed with men and had no issues with hijab or music or watching movies, she would have been a perfect person. This is what the media is doing. And we all know what the media is doing now in terms of enforcing the concept of LGBTQ, homosexuality, forcing it to the children, even at primary schools, introducing it in all aspects of life to be the norm. They are normal people. They can live their normal life. You have to accept them. You have to promote them and endorse them if they are within your community. This is what the media is doing. The media is creating a virtual battle between men and women. And the media insists to creating another man. So women now, they look and sound like women, but they're actually being transformed into another man. I do a lot of counseling sessions, as you guys know. And a lot of these counseling sessions, when I sit with the men and women, I usually discover that these women are not real women. They have this idea of being independent. Though she takes everything from her husband, he provides for her, he gives her money, shelter, food, but she still feels that she's independent. He has no right to control me. He has no right to do this, to do that. And the man complains. He says, Sheikh, I'd like to have a wife, not a colleague living with me. Whenever I say something or ask for something, she says, you do it yourself. Yet she demands everything from me. So this is what is being created through the media nowadays. And the concept of equality is also something that we have a lot of the women and the men thinking that this is a prime concept in Islam. Women and men are equal. This is totally un-Islamic. This is totally wrong. It's not even logical. How can they be equal? In Islam, in the Quran, Allah says clearly, وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنثَى, and a male is not similar to a female. They're different. But nowadays, people who don't have Islamic background, people who have never touched the Quran or finished it in their lives, let alone studied it, they come and say, no, Islam promotes equality between the genders. This is not right. Islam promotes and endorses justice and fairness. So a woman has a role that a man cannot do, and a man has roles that women cannot do. If there was equality, then my wife would come to me and say, listen, I have given you so many children. Next year, you become pregnant. I'm going to take the year off. There's no equality. in this sense. She cannot do the things I can do because Allah created her physically and mentally different than He created me. So to believe that Allah is the fairest of all and the most just, and whatever Allah decrees is the best, is the main road to success. A woman is in this life a lesser degree, and we have to take this as a fact. Allah described in the Quran the husband to be the master of his wife. As in Surah Yusuf, they found her master standing at the door. And a boat can only sail with one captain. And an airplane can only fly with one captain. Two captains on board would take the plane down. One says go left, the other one says go right. One says go up, the other one says descend. It will crash. When we say that a man has a higher degree, this is mentioned in the Quran as well. But in worldly matters, in matters of management, in matters of guardianship. But at the sight of Allah on the Day of Judgment, they are all equal in the sense of being rewarded for their good deeds and being punished for their sins and bad deeds. And being lower than a man's status does not mean that a man does not need her or does not consult her. We all know that the Prophet ﷺ consulted Salama, the mother of the believers, in Al-Hudaybiyah, in the Treaty of Al-Hudaybiyah, when he ordered the companions to slaughter their sacrifice and shave their heads so that they can get out of their state of ihram, because they were prevented from going to Mecca. They could not believe their eyes or ears, and they refused. Not because they rejected the Prophet's instruction. They were hoping maybe something would be revealed, an improvement would take place, another incident would take place. When the Prophet talked to Salama and he was angry, she told him, don't speak to anyone. Just go out, shave your head and slaughter your sacrifice, and you'll see what they'll do. So the Prophet took her advice, not saying to himself, she is lower in degree than me and I'm more superior than her. No, on the contrary. So the degree is in regards of guardianship, in regards of supervision and management, and who is to be obeyed at the end of the day. And this is why we say that a woman's place is in her home. This is where she is mostly productive. I know this goes against what many working women believe, but this is the Islamic stance. A productive or a working woman can produce a machine or a device in her factory, while a practicing productive Muslim woman in her home would produce a whole generation from her home. Working is not at all prohibited for women, at all. It is totally permissible if the conditions are fulfilled. But what is better for a woman? To work outside her home, leave the kids unattended, or taken care of by a maid whom we don't know what she does to them or what she teaches them, or to be among her children, teaching them various sciences and moral acts that would shape and form the way they grow up. So we always often hear, how can a woman be productive when she's deprived of everything? You extremists, you fundamentalists, you sheikhs say everything is haram, haram, haram. How can she be productive when she is deprived of everything? First of all, this is an exaggeration. We never say that everything is haram. And whatever we say, we don't say it from our own whims and desires. And this is what I always ask my students, or who come asking me for solutions. Do you want to follow Sharia, or do you want to follow your whims and desires? 100% of those who I ask them this question say, we would like to follow Sharia, no doubt. Unanimous answer. But when you ask them in that particular problem or situation, which you're asking me about, are you following Sharia, or are you following your whims and desires? This is when they start to stutter and they stumble and say, oh, I don't know. Why? Because they know that they're not backed up by Sharia. They can't provide the evidence from the Quran and Sunnah that what they were doing is right. So the only alternative is that they're following their whims and desires. And I'll give you an example. We want women to be productive. Good. We want women to enjoy life. Excellent. Can we do this through Sharia or through our whims and desires? We can do this through Sharia, but Sharia doesn't suit you here. Why? Because in order for you to be productive in your point of view and to be happy and being paid, you have to free mix, you have to take off your hijab, you have to, if not break some rules, bend them. You have to travel without a mahram. You have to be in seclusion with non-mahram. It's a meeting, Sheikh. It's a business meeting. What can I do? We have a retreat every year for 3 days, and we have to go to Goa. And yeah, we have to go to the beach with the management. It's my job, Sheikh. What can I do? Subhanallah. So are you following Sharia or your whims and desires? Here is where the punchline is. It said, they can't say Sharia. And this is the biggest problem Muslims have. I have many big problems for Muslims, but one of the biggest problems. What is that? No, it is the biggest problem. Sue me, who cares? The biggest problem of Muslims is that they are unable to sync between Islam and their lives. And this is where they come to the fork of the road. Either I have to go right or left. Islam says go right. Others say, well, my whims and desires say go left. Whom to follow? This is what defines you as a Muslim or not. You see, Islam is a frame. So Islam is just a frame, like this one. And your life is a picture, which is bigger than the frame. A real Muslim puts the frame on the picture, which is his life, and start to cut the edges that does not fit. So at the end of the day, he has gotten rid of so many things of his life, habits, hobbies, desires, relationships, interests that do not allow Islam to fit on, because Islam is specified, limited. Now we have the frame fitting 100% your life. You're a practicing, real, true Muslim. Mabruk. The vast majority of Muslims, when they put the frame, said, oops, I can't get rid of these hobbies, these habits, these desires, these sins, what to do? The frame, I have to start breaking it, taking edges off it, put duct tape, put branches here, put some wood and nail it. So at the end of the day, I have a frame that fits my whole life. But this frame, this crooked frame, is not Islam. It's something new. This is why women find it difficult to adhere to Sharia, because it doesn't go with what they want. Sheikh, I'd like to be a nuclear scientist. Okay, my daughter, that's good. But I have to live in America for 7 years and work among men and study in different universities, and I don't have a father or a brother or a mahram to take me there, and I have to live alone, and I may have to work at night to provide for myself. Well, what do you want me to say? Sheikh, this is for the betterment of the Muslim society, blah, blah. This is haram. She doesn't listen. She goes, why? Because she doesn't want to follow Sharia. She wants to follow her whims and desires. So if we can cross this problem and solve it to abide by Sharia, then we have no problem. But who wants to follow Sharia nowadays? You're an athlete, and your country says to you, we would like you to represent our country in the Olympics. Yeah, but I'm a woman. There's no problem. You can wear the hijab. But everybody's going to look at me. No problem, just to compete. Maybe they will tell you you have to compete against an Israeli woman. There are enemies. No problem. It's for the spirit of sports. What is left of Islam? They have taken everything away from us. So no hijab, no fear of Allah. And I'm competing against an enemy of Islam who took forcefully Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa from us Muslims, kicked our Muslim brothers and sisters from their homes, occupied them, terrorized them, oppressed them. And I shake hands with them and I compete with them and I have a selfie with them. What is left of Islam? This is why the biggest problem is how to get aligned, synchronized between Islam and what Islam wants from us, between Islam and what our lives are all about. Once we manage to do this, then we are in good hands. So how can a woman be productive when she's deprived of everything? A woman is not deprived of everything. That's a big lie. And we have to stand up and say that this is a lie. So a woman is either married or unmarried. If she's unmarried, may Allah Azza wa Jal make her married. May Allah send a righteous, practicing, rich, handsome, knowledgeable, kind husband to her as soon as possible. But meanwhile, her greatest responsibility is to take care of her parents. So she is productive once she takes care of her parents and does her utmost ability to improve her society and community within what is accepted in Sharia and in norms. An unmarried woman can teach, can preach, can work in relief efforts, can work in da'wah, providing that she does all of this away from men. So she can teach her siblings, her cousins, her nephews and nieces, her the children around her, or her womenfolk. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, the mother of the believers, and all the mothers of the believers and the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, did not teach men, never had a halaqah in the masjid. They limited the teachings and preachings to women. And they managed to have a lot of women tabi'een learn from them and convey this knowledge to their husbands and their mahrams, etc. Nowadays, unfortunately, we see lots of women da'is, or scholars as they like to call them. And the sister doesn't cover her face. Half of her arm is showing. And she is addressing men and women on videos, on YouTube, and sometimes sharing the same table and platform and stage with non-mahram men. And I'm shocked when I see famous da'is sitting with a famous woman da'iyah, and they're talking about Islamic issues. Wow, that's great. Then what's next? And they crack jokes, and yani, mashallah, is so brotherly and sisterly. Yani, mashallah, mashallah, what a beautiful religion. Hey, what are you guys doing? Is this halal in your religion? Akhi, come on, don't be extreme. You're an old grandpa, you don't understand. We don't have these emotions. Oh, castrated. What do you mean by you don't have emotions? You're a man and she's a woman. And the worst thing is not that you're a man and she's a woman. The worst thing is that the people looking at you saying, okay, if Sheikh so-and-so is okay with that, then it's okay for me to sit with my female cousins and with my sisters-in-law, and we're like them. And this is where Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde comes into reality. A productive unmarried woman can be productive in her community. I know sisters that have circles of Hifd al-Quran with 40 and 50 other women, 4 or 5 times a week. She has classes in Aqidah exclusively for women, not even recorded. No one can hear it, only those who attend. They have classes in fiqh, and some of them even call me. I have students that I have never seen in my life. They call me, and for so many years, I've been teaching them on the phone with strict adherence to the Sharia. Not even, how are you? This is haram. We don't do this. Assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam, Sheikh. What's the ruling on so-and-so? I explain, she takes it and teaches it to others. This is how the Prophet used to do, alayhi salam. Not what we see nowadays. So an unmarried, productive woman can do wonders, providing she exclusively does this with those who are women like her. As for the married woman, her greatest role and job description is to take care of her house, her husband, and her children. And if she manages to do this alone, she will get the highest levels in Jannah. Imagine, Mother Khadija. How many hadiths did she report? None, or maybe 1 or 2. Mother Khadija, how many classes did she conducted to other women? We don't know of any. Yet she is one of the 4 highest degree and levels of women of Jannah. She is the mistress of the women of Jannah. Why? Very simple. She took care of her husband and her children. The Prophet ﷺ told us that Jibreel gave her the glad tiding of a house in Jannah made of a pearl that has no hardship and no loud noise. This is what she gave the Prophet in dunya. Whenever he came home, he would not work at all. And he would not hear noises and shouting and nagging and bickering at all. It was a safe haven for him. She raised his children, 4 beautiful women. And look at one of them, who was Fatima. And Fatima also is one of the 4 mistresses of Jannah, which shows you that if you take care of your husband and your family, you'll be in their level on the Day of Judgment. A woman who's married is not ordered to go and make jihad. She's not ordered to go and in the markets and say things and do things. The Prophet said, if she prays her fard, fasts her Ramadan, protects her chastity, and obeys her husband, she will enter the Jannah from whatever gate she wants. Only 4 things. We men, we have so many things on our bucket list that we have to fulfill. Otherwise, life is difficult. And a married woman can do wonders in producing a generation. It is the most difficult task and job. We men think that, yeah, you're sitting home doing nothing with the kids while I'm working and I'm suffering with my bosses and colleagues and people on the road. cut on me while driving, and we shouting and fighting, and the tenants not paying the rent, and the landlord wants his rent. People who I borrowed from are following me. People are cheating me in the market. You have nothing. That's a big lie, and a big misrepresentation of the truth. I, as a man, cannot stay with one of my children for more than an hour or two, and then I lose my sanity. I cannot carry a child for more than 10 minutes, and then my strong biceps get weary and tired. She does this 14 hours a day. But we don't seem to notice this. If a woman dedicates her life to her house and children, she will make a generation that would become unbeatable. Look what Ash-Shafi'i's mother did to him. Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Sufyan al-Thawri, Rabi'atul Ra'i, all great scholars of Islam. The sole person who brought them up Islamically, financed them, took care of them, was their mother. Most of them were orphans. It's the mother that is the one who takes care of her children. And she manages to make them real practicing Muslims or actors and singers and people of no use at all. When she sits home with her children, making them memorize Al-Fatiha, teaching them the pillars of Islam, saying to them how to read Surah Al-Mulk. I know women who used to spend half an hour or an hour before bed every single night reciting to her children Surah Al-Mulk until they memorized it by her recitation. They memorized Ayat al-Kursi. When they're 3 years of age, you ask them, what are the pillars of Islam? The child says, La ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, iqamus salah. At a very young age, only a mother can do this. And this is the most productive thing she can do in her life. Then what is the problem, Sheikh? The problem is that shaitan messes up things, confuses women, plays with their minds, and with men, of course, but we're focusing on women. They have to know their obligations before they demand their rights. First of all, do what you have to do towards your community, towards your children, towards your parents, towards your husband. These are your obligations. You must fulfill them. Then you may ask for your rights. There are so many things, but I think I've exceeded the time way beyond the allocated time, and I apologize. So in short, a woman can be productive exactly as a man once she acknowledges and knows the field she has to perform in, and she can do wonders if she applies Sharia, if she applies the Quran, the Sunnah with the understanding of the three favorite generations, so that Islam becomes the guide and the beacon to everyone in the household. And this is the easiest way of solving problems. When people come to me for consultation, for marriage disputes, etc., when they're practicing, it's done in 5-10 minutes. Khalas. No problems, no dispute. They're not going to divorce anymore, because they immediately acknowledge and recognize the fault. All what I do is open their eyes. I don't do anything else. I just say, okay, this is wrong according to Islam. This is right according to Islam. And it's done. When a Muslim woman manages to plant this in her home, where everybody acknowledges that we only abide by the Quran, by the Sunnah, and the man is respected as the main pillar of the house, as the backbone of the house, and the wife is the guardian and the truthful, honest protector of the household from inside, and all what they consume is halal money, no haram money. This is what qualifies to be a real, true Muslim house that would not have been established if there was no productive Muslim woman taking care of it. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد.
جزاكم الله خيرا شيخنا.